Welcome back to our deep dive into Plato's dialogues. It's hard to believe we've reached the final volume, exploring the laws.
I know.
We've journeyed with Plato through so many profound ideas.
Right.
And this last book offers some truly fascinating insights.
It does.
Ready to uncover those hidden gems of knowledge.
Absolutely. You know, I've always found the Laws to be one of Plato's most insightful works.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
While the Republic presents us with this beautiful utopian vision, the Laws takes a deeper look at the complexities of human nature
Okay.
and how those complexities play out in the real world.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating shift in perspective.
It really is.
Yeah.
And as I was going through the text,
Mhm.
I kept finding these unexpected nuggets of wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
Like the idea that the balance of power preserves states.
Hmm.
It's so simple yet profound.
Right?
And it makes you think about how power dynamics shape the stability of societies.
What's fascinating is that this idea, written thousands of years ago, still resonates today.
Wow.
We see it playing out in global politics, in national governments, even in our personal relationships.
Oh.
It's a testament to the enduring relevance of Plato's thought.
I was also struck by his observation that no one ever passed his whole life in disbelief of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
This really speaks to the innate human desire for something greater than ourselves.
Right.
A sense of purpose and meaning beyond the material world.
That's a great point. And in the Laws,
Yeah.
Plato explores the role of religion in shaping individuals and societies, advocating for a system that promotes piety and reverence for the divine.
Interesting.
He even grapples with the complex issue of religious diversity.
Really?
And the need for the state to find a balance between respecting individual beliefs and maintaining social cohesion.
It's amazing how he tackles such timeless questions that we are still struggling with today. For instance, he observes that the characters of men are best seen in convivial intercourse, suggesting that our true selves are revealed in those moments of shared laughter, conversation, and maybe even a little wine.
It's a reminder that even a philosopher like Plato understood the importance of social interaction and the role it plays in revealing our true nature. And speaking of social gatherings, remember those common meals?
Oh, yeah.
The sistia that he proposed in the Laws?
Yeah.
He saw them as a way to foster a sense of community and shared purpose. But he also acknowledged the potential for things to get a bit out of hand.
He tells this great anecdote about witnessing some, shall we say, exuberant behavior at festivals in Athens and Tarentum, particularly during the Dionysia. It's like he's saying, look, I get it. People like to party. But there needs to be a balance.
He was particularly struck by the lawlessness and drunkenness he observed.
Which led him to reflect on the importance of moderation and control.
Interesting.
Especially in shaping the character of young people. And this concern about the influence of social gatherings is reflected in his emphasis on the role of education in shaping virtuous citizens.
And speaking of shaping virtuous citizens, Plato also dives into the nuts and bolts of governance in the Laws, doesn't he?
He does.
He even talks about the importance of involving the people in the administration of justice, stating that the people must be allowed to share not only in the government, but in the administration of justice.
Oh, wow.
It's like he's anticipating the principles of democratic participation that would emerge centuries later.
It's a fascinating foreshadowing of later political thought.
It is.
And it highlights the evolution of Plato's thinking from the more idealized system of the Republic to the more pragmatic approach outlined in the Laws, for instance, in the Republic.
He envisions philosopher kings ruling with absolute authority. But in the Laws, he recognizes the need for a more balanced system with checks and balances.
Interesting.
A system where power is distributed. And the people have a voice.
It's like he's acknowledging that real-world governance requires compromise and adaptation. And one of the key differences we see is his view of the family in the Republic. He calls for the abolition of the traditional family structure. No private property. No individual parents. Children are raised communally for the good of the state. But in the Laws, he seems to have softened his stance.
That's right. In the Laws, he still emphasizes the importance of community and shared responsibility. But he acknowledges the value of the family unit
Interesting.
as a foundation for social stability and moral development.
Okay.
He even talks about the significance of filial piety and the bonds between siblings.
It's a much more nuanced perspective.
It is.
Reflecting a deeper understanding of the complexities of human relationships and their impact on society.
Right.
And it really highlights the evolution of his thinking.
Speaking of evolution, don't forget that we're evolving too.
Oh, yeah.
Towards our goal of 10,000 subscribers.
Oh, that's right.
When we hit that number, we're giving away a brand new iPhone to one lucky listener.
That's right. So hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
And tell your friends about our deep dive. Every new subscriber brings us closer to that iPhone giveaway.
Now, shifting gears back to the laws.
Okay.
Let's talk about education.
Yeah.
One of the things that always stands out to me is how Plato's faith in education remained strong.
It did.
Even as his political ideas evolved.
Absolutely. And in the laws, we see a more practical, less theoretical approach to education compared to the Republic.
Right.
In the Republic, education was all about philosophical training, culminating in the understanding of abstract concepts like the form of the good.
Right. But in the laws, Plato puts more emphasis on practical skills and knowledge that citizens need to thrive in the real world. Things like farming, craftsmanship, even military training are given greater importance.
It's as if he's saying philosophy is essential,
Right.
but people also need to know how to build houses, grow food, and defend their city.
Exactly. He seems to be acknowledging that a well-functioning society needs a balance of intellectual and practical skills.
Right.
And he's still deeply concerned about shaping virtuous citizens.
But the methods for achieving that virtue seem to have shifted.
Right.
For example, in the laws, Plato expresses concern about the potential negative influence of musical innovation on society. He even attributes some of the Athenian degeneracy and laxity in morals to the changes in musical styles at the theaters.
Wow.
It's like he's saying, hey, be careful with those newfangled tunes. They could lead us astray.
It's a fascinating example of how Plato saw a connection between cultural trends and societal values. And it reminds us of how debates about the influence of art and entertainment continue to this day.
It's funny how even thousands of years ago, people were worried about the corrupting influence of popular culture.
Right.
It seems like some things never change.
Human nature remains a constant. Even as the forms of its expression evolve.
Right.
And speaking of evolution, let's not forget about our own goal of 10,000 subscribers and that fantastic iPhone giveaway.
Absolutely. Every subscription counts. So hit that subscribe button and help us spread the word.
Right. As we delve deeper into the laws, one of the things that becomes really apparent is Plato's evolving perspective on what makes a society function. In the Republic, he presents this idealized vision, this almost perfectly calibrated system. But in the laws, we see him grappling with the messier realities of human nature and the practical challenges of governance.
It's like he's traded in his architect's blueprints for a set of well-worn tools.
Right.
He's still aiming for a just and virtuous society, but he's taking a more hands-on approach, acknowledging the need for flexibility and adaptation.
Exactly. And one area where this shift is really noticeable is in his discussion of the Nocturnal Council.
Oh, yeah, the Nocturnal Council.
Remember, this is that group of elder statesmen he proposes, tasked with overseeing the laws and making adjustments as needed.
It's almost like a built-in system upgrade. For the legal code.
Right.
They're not just enforcing the rules. They're constantly evaluating them, making sure they're still serving the best interests of the society.
And what's fascinating is that he doesn't limit their knowledge base to their own city. He suggests that members of the Nocturnal Council should travel to other countries, observe their laws and institutions, and bring back new ideas and perspectives.
So he's basically advocating for a globalized approach to lawmaking. Recognizing that there's always something to be learned from other cultures and systems.
Right.
Pretty forward thinking for someone writing over 2,000 years ago.
It really is. He understood that no single society has a monopoly on wisdom. And that there's value in studying different approaches to governance. And this openness to new ideas reflects a broader theme in the laws. The importance of adaptation and change.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this book. Societies are not static. They're constantly evolving, and their laws and institutions need to evolve with them.
They do.
And the Nocturnal Council is almost like an embodiment of that principle.
Speaking of evolution, let's take a moment to acknowledge the evolution of our own community here. Remember, folks, we're still aiming for that milestone of 10,000 subscribers.
That's right.
And when we hit that number, we're giving away a brand new iPhone to one lucky listener.
That's right. So if you're enjoying our deep dive into Plato's laws, hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
And tell your friends to join the conversation. Every subscription brings us one step closer to that iPhone giveaway.
Now, getting back to Plato, let's shift our focus to a topic that's always sparked debate.
Okay.
His views on crime and punishment. In the laws, he outlines a pretty comprehensive legal code covering everything from theft and assault to impiety and treason.
And what struck me was his emphasis on reformation rather than just retribution. He's not simply interested in punishing wrongdoers.
Right.
He wants to help them become better citizens.
He even goes as far as to suggest that judges should have access to writings on law and philosophy, guiding their decisions with wisdom and compassion.
Interesting.
He believed that understanding the human condition was crucial to dispensing justice effectively.
It's almost like he's saying, don't just punish blindly. Try to understand why people commit crimes and see if there's a way to help them make better choices in the future.
Exactly. And this approach is reflected in the variety of punishments he outlines,
Oh.
ranging from fines and community service to exile and even death in the most extreme cases.
Right.
But the goal, he stresses, should always be to rehabilitate the offender, not simply to inflict suffering.
He even proposes a rather controversial idea, exiling the descendants of criminals in certain cases.
Yeah.
It seems harsh, but it highlights his deep concern about the impact of crime on the social fabric.
It's like he's saying that sometimes drastic measures are needed to protect the health of the community, but he's also very clear that punishment should never be arbitrary or vindictive.
Right.
It should always be grounded in a sense of fairness.
Yeah.
And aimed at restoring harmony to the social order.
And this idea of social harmony is central to his vision of a just society. He believed that a well-ordered state should be based on principles of balance and moderation.
Right.
Where individual desires are tempered by a sense of responsibility to the community.
And speaking of balance, let's take a moment to acknowledge the balance we're trying to strike here.
Oh, yeah.
Between deep philosophical insights and the very real excitement of winning a new iPhone.
You got it. Remember, folks, we're just 10,000 subscribers away from giving away a brand new iPhone.
Right.
So subscribe, share, and help us reach that goal.
Now back to the fascinating world of the laws.
Yeah.
One area where Plato really gets into the nitty-gritty is economics.
Oh.
Economics. He has a lot to say about wealth trade and the role of money in society.
And this is where we see some of his more radical ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like his proposal to limit the amount of wealth that any one citizen can accumulate. He's worried about excessive wealth, creating inequality, and undermining social cohesion.
He saw economic imbalance as a breeding ground for envy, resentment, and ultimately social unrest. He believed that a truly just society needed to find a way to distribute wealth more equitably, ensuring that everyone had enough to live a decent life, but no one had so much that they could exploit others or disrupt the social order.
He even goes so far as to propose price controls.
Right.
To prevent merchants from making excessive profits and exploiting consumers.
It's as if he's anticipating the debates we're still having today.
Yeah.
About income inequality, corporate greed, and the need for government regulation to protect the public interest.
He wasn't anti-commerce entirely, though.
Right.
He recognized the need for trade and the exchange of goods and services.
He did.
But he wanted to make sure that economic activity served the common good, not just the interests of a wealthy few.
And he was particularly concerned about the potential for greed to corrupt.
Okay.
He even suggested that certain types of economic activity, like retail trade, should be reserved for non-citizens or foreigners.
It's like he's saying, let's protect our citizens from the morally corrosive influence of commerce. It's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
But it highlights his deep concern about the impact of economic forces on individual character and social well-being.
And speaking of radical ideas, how about that radical idea of winning a new iPhone just for subscribing to our podcast?
I know, right?
Right.
It's almost too good to be true.
It is pretty amazing.
But it is true. So hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
And tell your friends to join the fun.
Uh-huh.
Every new subscriber brings us closer to that iPhone giveaway.
Now, shifting gears from the world of ancient economics to the world of ancient leisure.
Okay.
Let's talk about how Plato envisioned citizens spending their free time.
All right, leisure time.
You might be surprised to learn that he wasn't all work and no play.
Oh, really?
He recognized the importance of recreation and relaxation for a well-balanced life.
But of course, he had some very specific ideas about how those activities should be conducted, right?
Of course. Remember, this is Plato we're talking about.
Yeah.
Everything has to be ordered and purposeful, even leisure. He believed that recreational activities should promote physical and mental well-being, foster social harmony, and even reinforce moral values.
So no wild, drunken revels like he witnessed at the Dionysia.
Well, he definitely wasn't advocating for that kind of excess.
Right.
He believed in moderation and control.
Okay.
Even in celebration. In fact, he proposed a designated master of the revels to oversee social gatherings and make sure things didn't get too out of hand.
It's like he's anticipating the need for designated drivers and party chaperones.
Yeah.
But seriously, it highlights his concern about the potential for even seemingly harmless activities to become excessive or corrupting, especially for young people.
He wasn't just focused on drinking, though. He also talked about the importance of music dance and athletic competitions as forms of recreation that could promote physical and mental health.
Right.
But even here, he stressed the need for balance and moderation. He even had opinions about the types of theatrical performances that should be allowed, arguing that some were morally uplifting, while others were degrading and harmful.
It's a reminder that even in ancient Greece, there were debates about the impact of popular culture on morality and social values.
Right.
And those debates continue to this day, don't they?
Absolutely. We're still wrestling with questions about the influence of art, music, media, and technology on our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
And speaking of influence, let's take a moment to acknowledge the influence of our amazing listeners.
Yeah, our great listeners.
We're so close to hitting 10,000 subscribers and giving away that brand new iPhone.
I know. It's exciting.
You got it. Keep spreading the word, folks.
Yes.
Every new subscriber brings us closer to that exciting milestone.
Now let's shift gears again.
Okay.
And tackle another potentially controversial topic.
Right.
Plato's views on military service.
Military service.
In a world where pacifism is often seen as a virtue, his ideas about the role of the warrior might seem a bit jarring.
Right.
That's right. He wasn't a pacifist.
Okay.
He saw military service as a necessary duty for citizens. A way to defend the state from external threats and maintain internal order.
Right.
He believed that a society needs brave and well-trained soldiers to protect its way of life.
And he wasn't shy about outlining the qualities he thought made a good soldier.
Right.
Courage, discipline, physical fitness, and even a certain level of ruthlessness in battle were all part of his ideal warrior.
He understood the brutal realities of war, and he believed that soldiers needed to be prepared to face those realities.
Right.
He even proposed harsh punishments for soldiers who showed cowardice or deserted their posts, including public shaming and the denial of the right to hold public office.
It's a reminder that in ancient Greece, military service was seen as a fundamental obligation of citizenship.
Right.
A way to prove one's loyalty and worth to the state.
But it wasn't just about blind obedience or mindless aggression. Plato also emphasized the importance of strategy intelligence and even a certain level of ethical restraint in warfare. He didn't condone wanton violence or cruelty.
Right.
He was trying to create a system that channeled military power towards just and necessary ends.
He believed that the ultimate goal of war should be peace.
Yeah.
The establishment of a stable and harmonious order.
Right.
He wasn't glorifying war for his own sake.
No.
He was recognizing its necessity as a last resort in a world where conflict is inevitable.
And that's a perspective that unfortunately remains relevant even today.
It does.
As we navigate the complexities of international relations and face the ever-present threat of violence, it's worth considering how we balance the need for defense with the desire for peace.
It's a complex challenge.
It is.
And one that Plato wrestled with over 2,000 years ago.
And speaking of wrestling with complex challenges, let's take a moment to acknowledge the challenge we've set for ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Reaching 10,000 subscribers and giving away that iPhone.
That's right. Keep sharing the podcast, folks.
Yes.
Every new subscriber brings us closer to that goal.
Now, as we delve deeper into the heart of the laws, I think it's important to address a question that some listeners might have.
Right.
Is this book really just a blueprint for an authoritarian state?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
After all, with its emphasis on control, regulation, and even censorship, it can be easy to read the laws as a recipe for tyranny.
But I think it's important to remember the historical context in which Plato was writing.
Right.
Ancient Greece was a world of constant warfare and political instability.
It was.
He had witnessed firsthand the chaos and bloodshed that could result from weak or ineffective governance.
Right.
And he was deeply concerned about the fragility of democracy.
So while some of his proposals might seem extreme to us today,
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that he was trying to address the very real challenges of his time.
Right.
And within that context, his emphasis on law order and even a certain degree of control can be seen as an attempt to create a system that could protect against the chaos and violence that threatened to engulf Greek society.
It's a reminder that even the most seemingly utopian visions can be shaped by the anxieties and fears of their time.
They can.
And as we grapple with the complexities of the laws, it's worth considering how our own anxieties and fears might be shaping our own political and social ideals.
And speaking of grappling with complexities, have you grappled with the complexity of subscribing to our podcast?
Oh, really?
And entering our iPhone giveaway?
It's not that complex, folks. Just hit that subscribe button and share the podcast with your friends.
Right.
Every subscription gets us closer to that 10,000 subscriber goal.
All right, let's dive into one of the most fascinating and intricate aspects of the laws.
Okay.
Plato's exploration of religion and its role in society.
Religion.
It's a topic that continues to be relevant and often contentious even today.
Right. And Plato doesn't shy away from the complexities.
He doesn't.
He begins by asserting the importance of piety and reverence for the gods.
Okay.
Arguing that a well-ordered state must be founded on a shared belief in the divine.
Right.
But he also acknowledges that religious beliefs and practices can vary widely.
Yeah.
And he grapples with the challenge of accommodating that diversity without compromising the stability of the state.
He even goes so far as to suggest that the state should have a role in regulating religious practices,
Right.
preventing the spread of what he considers to be harmful or dangerous beliefs. This might seem controversial to modern sensibilities.
It might.
But it reflects his deep concern about the potential for religion to be used as a tool for division and unrest.
It's as if he's anticipating the debates we still have today.
Yeah.
About the separation of church and state, the limits of religious freedom,
Right.
and the role of government in protecting both individual beliefs and the common good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while his specific solutions might seem overly authoritarian to us now,
They might.
I think it's important to remember that he was trying to find a balance between respecting individual beliefs and ensuring social harmony.
Right.
He believed that a healthy society needed a shared moral foundation. And he saw religion as playing a crucial role in providing that foundation.
He even proposes a system of religious education, arguing that citizens need to be taught not only to believe in the gods, but also to understand the moral and ethical principles that underlie true piety.
It's like he's saying blind faith isn't enough. We need to cultivate a thoughtful and informed approach to religion, one that promotes virtue and guides us towards a just and harmonious way of life.
And speaking of a just and harmonious way of life, let's not forget about our quest for 10,000 subscribers.
Oh, that's right.
And that iPhone giveaway.
Right. Every subscription helps us reach that goal.
It does.
And spread the word about our deep dive into Plato's fascinating and thought-provoking work.
Now, as we start to wrap up our exploration of the laws, I think it's important to address a question that might be lingering in our listeners' minds.
Right.
Is this book really relevant to us today?
That is a good question.
After all, it was written over 2,400 years ago.
Right.
In a vastly different social and political context.
Yeah, it was.
So why should we care? What an ancient Greek philosopher had to say about law and governance.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's one that every reader of Plato has to grapple with.
Right.
But I believe the answer lies in the fact that while the specific laws and institutions he proposes might seem outdated or even bizarre to us today, the underlying principles and questions he raises are still very much relevant to our own lives and societies.
Exactly. Questions about justice, equality, freedom, the role of government, and the search for a good life.
Those are definitely still relevant.
These are questions that transcend time and place. They're as relevant to us today as they were to the ancient Greeks.
And while we might not agree with all of Plato's answers, engaging with his thought, wrestling with his ideas, forces us to think critically about the assumptions we hold about law, justice, and the good society.
It pushes us to examine our own values and beliefs.
It does.
And to consider alternative ways of organizing our social and political lives.
Plato reminds us that the pursuit of a just and virtuous society is an ongoing process.
It is.
A journey that requires constant reflection, dialogue, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
He inspires us to strive for a world that is more equitable and more harmonious, even if we know that perfection might always remain out of reach.
So if you're looking for easy answers or simple solutions, The Laws is probably not the book for you.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to engage in a challenging and thought-provoking exploration of some of the most fundamental questions about human society, then I encourage you to dive in and see what insights you can glean from this ancient and enduring work.
And as you ponder those insights, remember that you're not alone in this journey.
We're not.
We're all in this together, striving to create a better world for ourselves and for future generations.
And who knows, maybe along the way we'll even win an iPhone.
That's right. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Plato's Laws.
It's been fun.
Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep striving for a more just and virtuous world.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Plato's Laws, I keep coming back to one of the most prominent themes woven throughout the text.
Oh, yeah.
The power of education.
It's truly fascinating how much emphasis Plato places on education. Even as his views on governance and society evolved from the idealism of the Republic to the more pragmatic approach of the Laws, his belief in the transformative power of education remained constant.
In The Laws, he paints a picture of education that goes far beyond memorizing facts and figures. It's about shaping character, instilling virtue, and cultivating a sense of civic responsibility.
He envisions a system where education isn't just confined to childhood or adolescence. It's a lifelong pursuit. Something that should continue throughout adulthood. He even suggests that the state should play a role in providing opportunities for citizens to engage in intellectual and artistic pursuits throughout their lives.
It's almost like he's anticipating the modern concept of lifelong learning.
Right.
He understood that a thriving society needs citizens who are constantly seeking knowledge, expanding their horizons, and engaging in meaningful dialogue.
And this emphasis on education isn't just about individual growth. Plato saw it as absolutely essential for the health and stability of the state itself.
Interesting.
He believed that an educated citizenry was more likely to be virtuous, responsible, and engaged in public life, which would ultimately lead to a more just and harmonious society.
It's a powerful idea.
It is.
And one that has resonated throughout history.
Yeah.
Think about the founding fathers of the United States and their emphasis on public education.
Oh, right.
Or consider the modern-day movements for universal access to education. There's a recognition that education is not just a privilege, it's a fundamental right. And a cornerstone of a just and equitable society.
And speaking of fundamental building blocks, remember, folks, our podcast is built on the support of our amazing listeners.
Yes, we appreciate our listeners.
We're still on our quest to reach 10,000 subscribers, and when we hit that magic #1, lucky listener is going to win a brand new iPhone.
That's right. So hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
Share the podcast with your friends and help us spread the word about our deep dive into Plato's Laws. Every subscription brings us closer to that iPhone giveaway.
Now, before we officially conclude our exploration of the laws, I think it's worth reflecting on the question we posed earlier. Is this book truly relevant to us today?
It's a question that's been on my mind throughout this deep dive. And, after spending so much time with the laws, I believe that its relevance lies not necessarily in the specific laws and institutions that Plato proposes, but in the enduring questions he raises.
Exactly. Questions about justice. Equality, freedom, the role of government, and the search for a good life.
They're good questions.
These are questions that transcend time and place.
They do.
They're as relevant to us today as they were to the ancient Greeks.
And while we might not agree with all of Plato's answers, engaging with his thought, wrestling with his ideas, forces us to think critically about the assumptions we hold about law, justice, and the good society.
It pushes us to examine our own values and beliefs.
It does.
and to consider alternative ways of organizing our social and political lives.
Plato reminds us that the pursuit of a just and virtuous society is an ongoing process.
It is.
A journey that requires constant reflection dialogue.
Right.
And a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
He inspires us to strive for a world that is more just, more equitable, and more harmonious, even if we know that perfection might always remain elusive.
So, as we conclude this deep dive, we encourage you to continue the conversation. Reflect on the ideas we've explored, discuss them with your friends, and see how Plato's insights might shed light on the challenges we face today.
And remember, as you embark on your own philosophical journeys, we're here to support you with insightful deep dives, thought-provoking conversations, and of course the chance to win a brand new iPhone.
That's right. Hit that subscribe button, folks, and help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Plato's laws.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning,
and
keep striving for a more just and virtuous world.